Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the CSUN podcast. And today we're going to be answering a very important question, which is why we're doing this, why we exist, and what's the point of all this, right? So we got to answer this why question, and I wanted to hear your personal opinion first.
For sure. I think that a lot of people just believe that, or they think that it's so easy for some people, like, just go get vaccinated, they say. You know, why not? If it's causing all these problems and it's making everything difficult, just go get vaccinated. What's the big deal? And I think they don't realize that this whole reason that we're fighting all of this goes beyond just, you know, this one vaccine and getting vaccinated. Who's unvaccinated? Who's vaccinated? It goes beyond that. I think a lot of people don't realize that. So I think that's something that we should really talk about and that they need to hear. The reason that we're doing all of this is, you know, when does it stop? So we have these mandates in place now for this one particular vaccine, but who's to say if we let this slide and we just all get vaccinated, that they don't implement something like this in the future for something else? For example, you know, we start with, you know, the COVID vaccine, but who's to say in a year from now, they're like, okay, we have these QR codes and these apps or whatever. Let's add the flu shot to that now. So not only do you have to keep up with your boosters for the COVID vaccine, but you have to keep up with your flu shot every year. Mm-hmm. And if you don't get your green check mark now and you don't have the privilege of going to a restaurant or going to work or whatever it may be. And maybe it's not the flu shot, maybe it's something else. Like, who knows? None of us know. But by just letting this slide and not fighting against this, we are basically giving them the opportunity to just continue to take our rights away, especially when it comes to our right to make our own medical decisions.
So. And why is it wrong to take our rights away of medical decisions? We're not medical professionals. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think a lot of people would just say, oh, just trust the doctors. Whatever the doctors say is right. So what do we say to those people who are just going to say, hey, you're not a doctor, so you don't have a choice over your own body?
Well, nothing is ever 100% safe. So when there is a risk, there has to be a choice. There are, you know, risks to getting vaccinated and there are risks to not getting vaccinated. Mm-hmm. And every single person is different. And I think that's why it's up to the individual to decide what risks they're willing to take, whether it's they're risking any adverse reactions for the vaccine because they think getting the vaccine is the best for them, or it's risking not getting it and thinking that they would be able to handle getting COVID, so that they don't want to risk possible adverse effects. I mean, everybody's different. That's why it's so important. When there's, like, for any other treatments or any other medicine, no one's ever forced you to do it. They give you, okay, here's how this medicine or this treatment or this drug will help you, but here's also what it might do, right? And that's why at the end of the day, it has to be our decision to make. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, none of us exactly, we're not doctors. We don't know everything about this vaccine. So that's why we don't know what will happen and what won't happen. So we just have to, I mean, take responsibility for that decision that we make.
Well, that's the thing. I wanted to go into that a little bit because I think a lot of people are afraid of responsibility and they don't want the responsibility of taking care of their own bodies or having the responsibility of being healthy. That's on the doctors. That's it. You know, like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I will do only what the doctors say. Whether or not it's good for you is not their concern. And it's not their concern to find out the truth because they're concerned with just not having the responsibility, because the responsibility is pressure. It's weight on your shoulders. But these things are, like, very essential to yourself. I mean, at least in my opinion, I would think that your own personal health is is going to be your responsibility regardless what the doctor says. And, back in the day, before this whole shit started, is you would come into for treatment either in the hospital or the clinic, and the doctor would tell you this is the risk, the benefits, like you mentioned. And the final decision was always with the patient.
The doctors are there to present you with your options and to advise you. I don't even think, can they tell you, like, this is what you should do, or are they...
They can make recommendations. Okay. They should be making recommendations.
Yeah, which is okay, but at the end of the day, that decision, it's the individual who has to make that decision. That's they can't rely on anyone else to make the decision for them, because then what if something does happen? Who is then liable for that decision, right? I mean, any workplace that's mandating, or school or whatever that's mandating these shots, they have no liability for what happens to someone who gets it.
Nope.
So how can they force someone to do something that they don't want to do that could have possible adverse effects, which even if, a lot of people say that it's such a small percentage and such a small chance, but there's still a chance and it's still happening to people. How can they go and do that and then say, okay, yeah, but whatever happens after that, I'm not responsible for?
Then who the fuck is responsible?
Exactly. That's why we have to be responsible, right? Yeah. That's why at the end of the day, the responsibility has to lie with us and ourselves, because then it just gets too messy. I mean,
your health should be in the best interest to you,
yes.
and to you only in the first place.
Yeah.
Of course, your doctor should be in the best interest of your health. But here's the thing, the doctors could be influenced by other things like payouts, donations, the Health Canada, right? Or the public health authorities. They could be influenced by a lot of things, whereas your decision can only be influenced by you and you only, maybe your peers too. But at the end of the day, that's why it's so important to take the decision in your own hands and do what's right for you, despite the other things that are happening around you.
Going back to the doctors thing, a lot of doctors are just scared to lose their license. I saw a video the other day. I can't remember who it was. One of the public health doctors, or the minister.
One of the ministers, in Ontario.
I forget her name. Yeah, she was saying that they are going to, any doctor that advises someone against getting vaccinated, they are going to be threatened with losing their license. I mean, there are situations where a person actually can't get vaccinated or shouldn't get vaccinated for whatever health reasons that may be, but can't get a medical exemption because the doctors are scared to give it to them because they're scared to lose their license. I mean, that is so corrupt. That's that
fucking wrong.
I know, right? I mean, this is an instance that I have actually heard a story from someone who was in that situation, who couldn't get the medical exemption. I actually know of a couple stories like that, where the person couldn't get a medical exemption because even though the doctor advised them against the vaccine, they couldn't actually give them anything in formal writing or in whatever.
Fired,
yeah, because they're scared of losing their license. Yeah. How do people still think this is about your health? When people whose health is genuinely at risk is still getting punished by all of this.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, it does baffle me too.
Yeah. This is why we're fighting, right?
So let's bring it. Let's zoom out a little bit, bring it into the general terms. I don't want to see a society where I don't make decisions about my own health. I don't want to live in a society like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to live a life where people make decisions for me.
Yeah.
I'm not a baby. I don't need to have, medical professionals and then teachers and professors take me by the hand and tell me what to do. I want to live my own life. I want to live it the way I want to live it because that's what makes me happy. And the whole purpose of life is to enjoy it.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, right? Everybody has to live to enjoy it. You're not going to live to suffer. And what's the best way to enjoy it is to do the things you like and you want and that are best for you. Specifically. And then we're going to create individuals who are taking care of their bodies if that is their responsibility. They're going to be taking care of their financial situations, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to zoom out of all of this and to really answer the question, in my opinion, why CSUNT is doing this and why other organizations are fighting against this, why the mandates are so wrong. One thing, they're wrong, but also just in general, we don't want to see a society where the state, the government, is in control.
No. We do live in a democracy, right? So the people...
Don't know about that one.
Well,
we used
hypothetically speaking. So we should have a say in the policies that are being implemented, because I don't really want to believe that the majority of our population actually is in favor of these policies. So how are they being implemented? I mean, there's no...
Well, we elected them.
Well, we did. You're right.
We elected them, and that's why we're in this situation. But that's a whole...
People should have the power over this, over the state. They shouldn't have complete control over us. If we don't have our basic freedoms, like if I want to take a shot or not, then where do we go from there? Then what else do we have? I mean, you're right.
Well, the government is working for us. We pay them.
We do.
We fucking pay taxpayers money for these things.
We're paying for these mandates to be implemented.
Yes, exactly. We're paying for the cops. We're paying for all these public health officers to come to our houses and check if you have a mask at home while you're quarantining, all this bullshit. We're paying for this. We literally elected them, and now we're paying into their pile of cash to spend it on all these ridiculous things to take away our rights and our freedoms. So I am paying for this. I am paying for them to do their job, which is to serve us. They are our servants, because we are paying them for a service of leading the country and taking us in the right direction, which people want to go into. But what it seems like is now they are in power and they're running with it. They're taking it too far, and they are violating all kinds of things because they were elected and they feel privileged to rule over us.
Well, and they also, disguise everything as being for the greater good, right? That's a big thing. So everybody feels like, I've heard people call themselves heroes for taking the vaccine, right? So there's this mindset now that if you follow every public health order that they're putting out there, you're this, I don't know, you're better than everyone else. I don't know.
Oh, they think they're better than us.
It boosts their ego. Yeah, I don't know. So, and then it's if you don't do it, now you're selfish because you're putting other people at risk, or you're not doing the thing to benefit the greater good, right? So that's what it's kind of being disguised as, and I think that's why a lot of people are just falling for it. They just think they're doing something good, but they don't realize the harm that all of this is causing if you really pay attention. Not even just the mandates, the lockdowns and everything else. It's causing a lot of harm, and if we don't speak up and do something about it, if people don't start realizing where this could potentially lead, I think as a society we might be in trouble.
I think we are in trouble.
Well, we already are in trouble, but even more trouble.
Yeah, let's take a look at what could happen to Canada and Ontario and the universities. But what could happen to us if we don't do something about it? Hey guys, we're back. We just had some technical difficulties with our equipment. So if you are so inclined to help us out with that, we are looking for some better mics and better equipment just so we can keep running things smoothly. So we're going to have a wish list set up if you are so inclined to donate and do something about that. But anyways, we're going to continue on with whatever we got. So we left off by talking about what is going on around the world, and this is where we don't want our country to go to, and this is why it's important to resist and fight the mandates. So I'm gonna start off with a video from Australia. It is just a short TikTok segment of somebody who filmed their internment camp. They literally have internment camps for COVID if you like were close to somebody with COVID. And this is the video, so let's watch it together.
Yeah, it's an official warning that you have to stand about and obey the rules all you get, yeah? And that's, we have to go the rules again. I don't care.
So am I allowed to go to the laundry?
You're allowed to go to the laundry, but you got to wear a mask, yeah?
Yeah, righto.
And you definitely can't go up to fencing routes, but you're allowed to go to the laundry, yeah? That's always been the case, yeah?
Right, so if I was sitting just here, which is right near the fence, why are these guys in a cabin that's right near the fence? It makes no sense, does it?
Yeah, but you can't leave your balcony to go to the fence to talk to somebody else. That's the problem, yeah?
So if I was
Again,
at
it
that
doesn't have to
balcony...
make sense. So there has to be lines everywhere drawn, yes? And one of the lines is you cannot leave a balcony and you cannot go to someone else. Where it makes no sense or doesn't seem right to you, that is the line and that's what the law is, yeah? And that's how it goes, yeah?
The law.
Well, the show direction.
There's a law that says
show
that.
direction, yep. There's a show direction, yeah? And how the behaviour must be done, especially in this area, because it's much more highly infectious. The likely to infect people, yeah?
Highly infectious when all of us people are negative.
So far, the risk is still very much, yeah? But while you're here, can we just do that? Otherwise, the next time it's a $5,000 fine. We don't want to do that.
It's a $5,000 fine if what?
If you breach again.
If I walk out onto that path.
Without your mask on, for
With-
no reason other than the law.
If I cross that yellow line that I've broken the rule, I will be issued with a $5,000 fine.
That's right.
Wow.
First thoughts. There's a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah.
This.
The first thing. So he says it doesn't matter whether you think it's right or if it doesn't make sense, but it's the law.
It doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah, so basically that sums up everything that's been going on. It doesn't matter if you think it's right. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense. This is just what you're told to do and you have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, $5,000 fine.
$5,000 if she steps out on the sidewalk. And everyone's negative.
Everyone's, yeah.
But he claims that it's a highly infectious area.
Yeah. Relax.
I don't...
Deep breath. Okay. Yeah, so a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah.
Let's look at this objectively.
Mm-hmm.
The guy at the end, what he says there is, I'm just here. I'm just doing my job. This
Mm-hmm.
is my job.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically have to enforce the rules and enforce the laws here.
Mm-hmm.
What does that entail?
Well, I mean, yeah, I understand that it's his job.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it doesn't really matter, because if you believe in your heart that something that you're doing is wrong, why are you following through with it? Why don't you? I mean, I don't know. Like, I do understand, and I know that a lot of people are in positions where it's like, you know, it's just my job. I'm just doing what I'm told. But the thing is, if everyone just has that mindset, then we get nowhere, right?
Mm-hmm. You're a slave.
Yeah.
You're a slave to the authority.
Like, if everyone that worked in that facility just said, no, this is not right,
Yeah.
then he wouldn't be able to impose these laws or whatever he called them that don't make sense. If majority of people just said, I am not imposing these because, like, I'm not going to hand out $5,000 fines for something that's stupid because I think it doesn't make sense, then they would have no one to impose the laws. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if everyone who actually just believed that something was wrong just said something about it,
Yeah.
maybe we wouldn't.
I'm not doing this.
Yeah, maybe we wouldn't be in the position that we are. So while I do understand that and I can sympathize with that, I just don't think it's an excuse.
No, it's definitely not an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if people had integrity and they stood up for what they believe in,
Mm-hmm.
because clearly he's not there to enforce the laws because he truly believes in them. He
Mm-hmm.
would have said it like, oh, this is infectious and that's the reason I'm here, because you are a danger and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But he doesn't say that. What he says is, yeah, the laws are the laws and it doesn't matter if it makes sense. I just have to do my job. That's
Mm-hmm.
essentially what he's saying. And the rule is so fucking ridiculous that you cannot cross a line on the balcony because you are highly infectious, even
though you're
though
not.
everybody fucking tested negative at this camp.
Yeah.
And guess what? This camp was probably built using taxpayers' money.
Yep.
People paid to be in jail because she is in jail, despite, you know, what the media was showing about, you know, them like just chilling there and with Wi-Fi and good food.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. It's a glorified jail.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to step outside a line. Isn't that what a jail is?
I think I saw it's another TikTok or video or something like that. It was a clip of like these two girls. They looked like they were like younger, like in their 20s, like they were on vacation in the Bahamas or some other tropical place. I don't remember exactly. And they go, this is what happens when you like test positive in the Bahamas or wherever that they were. And they were like showing videos of them with like ankle monitors on. And yeah, I swear to God, like I swear they had ankle monitors on, like, and they were like flaunting it, and like it was no big deal. It was like they were like, "Hey guys, like check out this." Like that's literally what it was. And I was like, "Oh my God, they put, you know why they put ankle monitors on people, right? Not for people who test positive for
for a disease, and not people who are, you know, just
they're
sick.
Basically like." Okay, now you're being treated like a criminal almost. Not almost.
You are a criminal for catching you're a victim of, well, let's say you got COVID or you were in close contact with, you know, for COVID. How about the early treatments? How about, you know, give me some chicken soup? Like, why are we treating this with prison? I don't understand why do people need to go to prison? Because that's what I'm just going to call it prison, because that's what I see as it is, even though they call it COVID camps, right? Internment camps, whatever the fuck it is. But the bottom line is that it is a glorified prison where you get comfort, Wi-Fi, food 3 times a day, or whatever the case might be. But hey, you cannot walk outside because you're in prison for 14 days or whatever the case might be. And God forbid you misbehave, because you're going to get fined and you're going to be locked up back in there again. I think there was another story of 2 girls, like teenage girls, running away from there. Like they actually escaped, and then they caught them again and brought them back in there.
Oh my God.
So it's like, it's not people are going there willingly to just hang out. Oh, hey, I don't want to infect my grandma and keep everybody safe. So I'm such a good person, I'm going to go to prison for 2 days or 14 days. It's actually, they show up at your house and they say, hey, you're going to test because we know you were in close contact with somebody else. You test negative, doesn't fucking matter. You're going to prison for 14 days.
That's so scary because, you know, like with this whole QR system and this, like the app that they implemented, like even before the mandates and everything, where it was like contact tracing. Yeah. Like, I don't know, like some kind of Ontario government app.
Yeah.
It's like,
it was
like tracks where you are. And if there's like COVID positive people near where you were,
get a notification.
Yeah. Like if we give them if we let them do things like that, like there's people that are like, oh yeah, I signed up for the app or whatever. Then who's to say, you know, they're not going to, like, now they know where you've been around other COVID positive people or whatever. And it's who's to say they're not going to come show up at your door now and do exactly what they just did in Australia. I mean, that's what we mean by taking responsibility, right? We need to be responsible enough that, okay, if I know I've been around someone who has COVID and if I'm sick or whatever, like, obviously, like, I'm not going to go
out, feel bad, just
right? Like,
stay
I'm
home.
sick. Like, I want to stay home, but I want to stay in the comfort of my home and I want to, you know, watch TV from my own bed or whatever it is. Like, there's no justification for why they need to drag you out of your home and put you in another facility or whatever that's no different than your like house. I don't know. It just
makes no sense.
It doesn't. I'm trying to think of ways that it like could be justified.
Well, in my mind, it cannot be justified, and I don't really see a way to justify it rationally, unless you are just going to be doing it with lies. But so that's what's going on in Australia. So if we continue down this road, we might see internment camps here. We might see some of these things happening, and we might see people going to literal prison for getting infected with something that is very transmissible and something that you would probably get infected with anyways in the coming years or months. So guess what? You'll be making some regular visits to prison and just until you get healthy or whatever the case might be. So that's Australia. I don't want to live like that, and that's why I'm standing up to the mandates, and that's why we're doing this.
Something crazy that I was speaking to someone, and they were like, "Oh, look at Australia! Like they followed all the rules, and now they're COVID free or something like that." And I'm like, "Do you not know what's going on in Australia? Like people have no idea.
No.
They really have no idea. They don't."
And that's what we're here for, to tell them what's going on and tell them where we're headed.
Like, I don't know, but is being COVID free, whatever that means, I don't even think you can get rid of COVID, but it's a different topic. Is it worth giving up everything else for it? Like giving up your own, like the decisions you can make for your own body? Is it worth giving up, your freedom to be at your home without, public health knocking on your door? Like, I don't know. Is that
That's a great
worth
question.
it?
So you are giving up your privacy. You are giving up your bodily autonomy, and you're giving up your freedom, your essential freedom, because you're not allowed to go to the laundry room at a certain time or whatever the fuck case might be. So you're giving up all of these things that are fundamental for your survival just to feel 1% safer, essentially. Because you're already, if you are in our age group, you're likely to be a certain percentage safe from COVID or from severe disease from COVID.
Well, I had COVID, right?
Right. And I had COVID too. And it was,
And not to say that everyone's experiencing the exact same as mine, but again, that's why we have to make decisions for ourselves, because everyone's experiences are different and we have to take responsibility for that.
Yes. But another thing is that the statistics say that 99.7% of COVID positive patients survive and they don't have any severe outcomes. So, I mean, in a real fucking pandemic, are you really going to have to force people to take something, or are you going to force them to lock down? They're going to do it themselves. Like you walk outside and there's people dying and literally everybody is in danger. People are going to be naturally scared of going out and doing things.
Like how people were at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was scared.
Yes.
I mean, I was scared, right? But then over time, people came to the realization that, hey, maybe, just maybe, it's not as bad as we think. I'm relatively healthy. I'm young. I'm this, I'm that. There's a good chance that I will survive this, right? So people started to realize that. And if, like you were saying, if things were so bad, then how I would want to take a vaccine.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't
I'll be lining up first. Yeah.
Exactly. But they wouldn't have to, bribe me saying, "Oh, if you show your proof of vaccination, you'll get a free donut at Krispy Kreme."
They do.
They wouldn't have to bribe people. They wouldn't have to make these mandates. They wouldn't have to convince us.
No.
Right? We would just already be convinced.
Yeah. Otherwise, at this point, you literally have to make up lies to convince us and make life extremely difficult for us to convince us to do something to protect ourselves, because they're making us protect ourselves, essentially.
Yeah.
But you're making me do this. And why is that? Because I don't feel a threat. I don't feel a threat from COVID. I don't feel a threat from other people. I want to hug people. I want to shake people's hands. And I want to interact with everybody else because that's what humans do.
Yep.
And it's dehumanizing when they're telling you that everybody's diseased, even though they're not. I don't see people dropping dead. I don't see, everybody just dying like it's a crazy pandemic, like in that movie that came out on Netflix recently.
Which one?
Contagion. Not recently, but last year when the pandemic started, right? In that movie, literally like a shit ton of people, like a shit ton of people died, right? It was like, oh, your wife dies and your child dies and you're the only one alive. Yeah, you're going to be fucking scared.
Yeah.
Because you can see death with your own eyes.
So then, just tying this into what you're saying, what do you think then about them claiming that all of this is just to limit ICU capacity? Because now that's their argument, right?
Mhm.
So it went from like protecting other people and all that stuff. Now they know that the vaccine doesn't protect others, right? It just protects
From
yourself.
catching
It may not even protect yourself, but
Yeah.
whatever. Now the argument that I hear from a lot of people is, oh, but the ICU capacities, right?
Mhm.
We gotta, the less people that are vaccinated, the more people are gonna have an ICU because they're gonna get severely sick from COVID, and then that's why there's cancer patients that are not getting treatments and blah, blah, blah. So it's blaming the unvaccinated people for the large ICU capacities. Like, what's your argument against that?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's true.
Mhm.
I don't think our hospitals are overwhelmed. In fact, what I hear from some of my colleagues
Mhm.
in the healthcare profession that did decide not to um, go along with the mandates, and
Mhm.
they got laid off, they got fired. The nurses that worked at the hospitals, they said, what actually occurred, and this is a colleague who worked in a GTA hospital, a major hospital in the GTA, and he said what actually occurred when the COVID whole thing started was that we typically had 99 capacity all the fucking time
Mhm.
because we need money.
Right.
If there is 97% capacity, the hospital's in trouble to pay the bills.
Interesting.
So they need
It's
full
financial
capacity in
incentive
order
there.
to pay for the things and basically make the same amount of money that they normally would make. Because they don't, a hospital costs a shit ton of money. It's the supplies, it's the doctors you have to pay a lot, lots of nurses, lots of staff, right? A lot of things you need to pay for, and the hospital needs full capacity in order to operate. The hospital is not going to operate well at 80% capacity because they won't have enough income
Right.
coming in from the patients, because it's a whole lot of money to keep somebody in the hospital for a day or extra X amount of days, or even ICU. So then what happened was they canceled all of these, they cleared up beds for COVID patients, thinking there's going to be a huge rush of COVID because there was a huge panic, and the health ministry said, get ready because we're going to see a whole onslaught of people coming into the hospitals and just dying from COVID. And then he said none of that ever happened. So we were just no work to do.
Very interesting.
And so, they stopped these treatments. They stopped, surgeries. They canceled surgeries. They postponed them.
I know so many, I know some people who, even, now that's almost 2 years ago, but that's crazy. But in the summer, the first summer of all this, they had a surgery canceled for 8 months, I think, and it was a life-saving surgery.
Yeah.
It was very risky that they to not have this surgery. It was heart surgery or something crazy like that, and for what? I don't know.
Well, the patient, some patients come into the ICU for COVID. Of course, this happens all the time, just like it happens for the flu and any other diseases. Happens all the time. That's what hospitals are for. And why is it my responsibility to take care of that? I don't understand. My responsibility is to stay healthy, and I am healthy, and I'm not going to be in the ICU from COVID or from the flu or any other pathogenic thing at this point. And so I don't so one argument is I don't think it's true, but another side to this is it's not my responsibility. That's the responsibility of the government to take care of, because if there's less ICU spots, then fucking make more ICU spots, hire more doctors, hire more nurses, hire more staff. Build a hospital. When the whole COVID thing started, there was so much panic that in the States, Trump brought in a whole hospital ship to New York to help them out, and they never fucking used it.
Wow.
And so, but here I haven't heard anything. We've been through this in 2 years. You're complaining about the ICU spots, and you have not increased the capacity, and you're telling me it's my fault, and I'm healthy, and I've never been in the ICU.
And then they're firing the workers. So no wonder
Yes.
they're short-staffed, and no wonder they're having trouble keeping up, I
The
guess,
ICU bed,
right?
yes.
When they have less help.
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of, and I've heard from quite a few people that they've been to hospitals and they just are like, it's empty in here.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
empty.
yeah.
And
In the emergency rooms, you get, like at Trillium, you get doctor care like this. It's easier to go to the ICU room than to go to a walk-in clinic, because there's the hospital is less filled than the walk-in clinic in some cases.
Wow.
In some nights. So you would rather go into the emergency room and tell them, oh, I need this prescription like fast. I got some infection, whatever. It's not an emergency, but you just come in because the doctor is available. All right, now we're back again with some technical issues. But
today's just not been our day.
it's not our day, but we're gonna get this done anyways.
Yeah.
So what we paused at was the question about ICUs, why the ICUs are being blamed on us, and the argument of ICUs being filled if you don't vaccinate. So again, just reiterating my point was that, first of all, according to my own sources and my own research, is that it's not a new thing that hospitals are overwhelmed. They're normally overwhelmed with flu season, with any other thing. That's normally how they run. That is how, which is another separate problem, but that is generally how they run, pandemic or no pandemic. That is how the hospitals are run, and the ICU beds are always filled because that is how the hospital makes money. And another argument of all of this is that it is not my responsibility to keep the hospitals or keep the ICU beds free of patients. That is not my responsibility. All I can be responsible for is my own actions and my own decisions and my own life. I'm not responsible for anybody else. So if you're smoking, if you are obese or any of the other things that are actually controllables, then that is your own choice and that is what you want to do. But I am staying healthy. I'm staying outside of the ICU, even though I pay taxpayers' money for this ICU bed. It is not my responsibility to maintain that. It is responsibility of the authorities. It is responsibility of the people running the whole thing to make sure that they have enough space to accommodate for the people that are paying for this. Because you're not going to kick out a person who was smoking their whole life and they have lung cancer. You're not going to refuse them treatment. Oh, hey, it's your choice, you smoke. And it actually is a choice because it's not forced. And you're not going to kick out an obese person because they decided to eat and live this lifestyle. Right? It's not the right thing to do. And the police, like if we compare this to police, and they say, "Oh, this criminal is just fucking terrible criminal. I'm not going to catch him. Fuck it." Like,
right.
You are going to get bad apples and bad cases everywhere. Like education, you're not going to stop educating bad students. You're going to still educate them because that's what you do. It's your job. Same thing with the hospitals. And now the hospitals are making this sort of comparison as if the hospitals are a privilege. But it is a right. It is a right, just like it is to educate and just like it is to feel safe from criminals. Everybody has to do their job. So do your damn job. And the authorities should be there to support that. And if they are having trouble, well, then increase the capacity, hire more doctors.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the exact number. I'm not sure if you know, but I think it was like millions or potentially billions of dollars that our federal government spent on implementing vaccine passports and mandates and something like that. If the issue is really the ICU capacities, like you said before, you, instead of using that money to develop this stupid app that essentially doesn't do anything for public health, I don't know, build extra hospitals, increase capacity in some ways, expand hospitals. I don't know. I'm not a professional in that area, but I do know from my own common sense that there's money that our government has that is being, I think, used for things that don't even end up changing anything. If the argument is the ICU capacity, then do something to change the ICU capacity. People are going to get sick regardless. Like, you're always going to have people sick. Vaccinated people are getting sick and getting into the ICU, right?
Yep.
It's not their fault. But if there's no room for them, then increase that capacity. And going back to why we should resist these mandates, it's because if we don't stand up to this, this government, look how easy it is for them to spin this narrative, show you what they want you to see, and tell you what they want you to believe so that they can get their way, right? And then there's so many people that just, they just believe it, I guess. They buy into it because the government has enough power that they can, using the media and whatnot, to spin the narrative how they want it to be, and I mean, how they want it to be presented to us. And it's like, if we don't do something about this, what else are they going to what else are they going to, like, it's COVID now, but it could be something else later, right?
And we won't have a say in any of the decisions. We won't have a say on how the country is going to be run in different situations.
If they can't handle a pandemic or like COVID without violating all of our basic rights, then what happens when the next or something else, some other major event or crisis or whatever it may be happens, and the only way they know how to fight it is just
taking away people?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it doesn't seem sustainable to me. I mean, it doesn't, like lockdowns, let's say, right? It's clearly not something that's been working, but they just keep doing it because that's all they, I guess, know how to do, or that's all they're, I mean, I don't know why they continue to do it, but it's not a sustainable option. It's causing more harm. Like, we can't keep giving our government so much power that they can just shut everything down or do whatever they want to any of us. It's kind of scary.
It is, yeah. It's scary knowing that somebody has power over your own bodily decisions and your own health decisions.
And of course there has to be, to a certain extent, right? I mean, like, we do need government. We need government to
we
keep
need
everybody
laws.
civil and to make sure society runs smoothly. Of course. But, like, to an extent, right? We have to start. We have to draw that line.
You have to hold them accountable, because when you don't stand up to somebody who is being abusive, they're going to continue to do it, and they're going to continue to push it further and further. Like I said, when you give somebody power, they run away with it and they take it too far. And that's exactly what the governments of the world are doing. And that is why it's important to resist now, like right now, immediately, because the longer this shit goes, the harder it is to resist, the more restrictions you have and the less freedoms you have. So that's why we are resisting it. And I don't want this to go any further like it is going in the other countries. Let's take a look at some of the articles regarding Europe. We looked at Australia, the video here from the quarantine camps.
And I mean, there's an article here. Germany locks down unvaccinated people as leaders plan to make shots compulsory. That already, like, that headline, right? Only locking down unvaccinated people. And they want to make the shot completely mandatory. And I've heard that from other countries as well, where they, like, I don't know, like, what happens then if you don't want it? You get fined? Do you, like, go to jail? I mean,
well, there's definitely if they make it a law, you're a criminal.
Right.
You break the law. And there's got to be punishment for it. So that's where they're headed. That's where they want to go.
So here it says unvaccinated people will be banned from accessing all but the most essential businesses, such as supermarkets and pharmacies, to curb the spread of coronavirus. But how does that curb the spread of coronavirus? I don't understand. How the vaccine doesn't stop you from spreading it. Like, that's something that we all know by now. So how is this justified then? I don't understand.
I don't know.
Those who have recently recovered from COVID are not covered by the ban. this is another thing. They're denying antibodies, they're denying previous COVID infections and how that can also protect you from future infections and getting sick. They're completely denying all of that, and they're not allowing any of that to be a reason for not getting vaccinated, which, again, if this is really about health and keeping people safe and healthy and to avoid people from getting severely sick from COVID, then why does somebody who's had COVID already need to get vaccinated? When you get pretty much, the same antibodies, if not, some people say even more. I don't know.
Well, some studies showed that it is X amount of times better and more effective. Yes, but again, of course, none of this makes sense to me or to you, and I bet it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. But the question is why we're resisting it. And so here's the evidence of what we don't want our country to turn into. We don't want forced vaccinations. We want bodily autonomy. We want decisions for yourself. We want to take responsibility for our own lives. And that's what we stand for. That's our beliefs. And therefore, that is not the country I want to live in. And so I'm fighting for those basic freedoms, those basic rights that our veterans have fought for in numerous wars, just to keep these fundamental freedoms. And we're fucking handing them over like it's nothing. Like it's whatever, freedom.
And then people go and say that we're like exaggerating over the fact that they're taking away our freedoms. It's like they're taking your freedoms away too. It's not just the freedoms of the unvaccinated people, but eventually it's going to be your freedoms. It may not be affecting you yet, but what happens when they impose something that now you don't like? Then what then, right?
You don't have a say.
Yes. And we're fighting for everyone and not just unvaccinated people. And like people don't understand that.
No.
Right? And they don't realize that.
People don't realize that, and people who are still buying into the narrative still think it's about their own health, and everybody's just trying to take care of them, and they kind of play into that narrative, that whole mind of, oh, we're just trying to take care of you. Fuck the unvaccinated. We're just trying to take care of you, and we're just trying so hard. But look at these unvaccinated. They're making life so hard for us. They're keeping us locked down. What is that doing? They're just dividing us. They're literally dehumanizing us and saying, not just us, but just people in general. They're saying, hey, look, this is you problem, not me, although they are in charge of making the decisions. I mean, I can't increase ICU beds. I can't do anything about it. I can only control my own actions. And my actions say is I'm healthy, I work out, I do what I need to do, and I take responsibility for it. If you don't, well, you have to face those consequences. That is going to be because that's the decision you've made. And that's an actual decision for your own life. You have the freedom to choose if you want to exercise or you don't. You have the freedom to choose if you want to eat healthy or you don't. Freedom to choose if you're going to smoke or not.
And of course, there's always going to be those rare occasions when even a healthy person does get sick from COVID. And unfortunately, as I guess brutal as it sounds, like unfortunately that's life, right? And I feel awful saying that. But that, again, that was that person's decision to not get vaccinated, if let's say they didn't, right? And if they're a super healthy person and they get really sick from COVID, yes, maybe they didn't make the right decision, but at the end of the day, it was their decision. You won't be able to. Nothing is 100%, right? Like not every single healthy person is going to be 100% safe from COVID. There's always going to be a few odd ones, right? But same thing with the vaccine. Not everyone's going to get an adverse reaction from the vaccine, but there are going to be the few odd ones that do. So it goes both ways in terms of this is why it's so important that it's your own decision and you have to accept what the consequences are of that decision. Because that's the main thing here.
The bottom line, take responsibility for your own lives. That's all.
But then you get called selfish.
Like, don't you want that? Don't you want to respond, like, have a say in your own?
I don't know if people do.
I think a lot of people don't.
It's easier to just be told, like, what to do, right?
Yes.
Than to have to.
But what if you're told to do something bad for yourself? And you're still going to follow it because you don't want the responsibility?
It's for the greater good.
Well, that's kind of the justification.
Right.
But what I know from psychology and what I've studied in my undergrad and just my own personal studies, because I do have an interest in that, people don't make decisions based on logic. They make decisions based on emotions, and then they justify it with logic. And so they make decisions based on emotions of, I want to be just like everybody else, and I want to go to and do this, and I want to go to the nightclubs, and I want to travel, and this is why I'm going to take it emotionally. But then logically, they're going to convince themselves, oh, I'm doing it for the greater good, because that makes you feel good, right? That makes you feel like, oh, I did the right thing. And that is why people make those decisions. They don't make the decisions by seeking the truth or looking for evidence, because that's scary. What if you're wrong? And that's a great responsibility that people don't want to take. And just going into that, I have another video that I saw. It is an animation of that is. I think it's a little bit exaggerated about our world, but I think 80 to 90% it is accurate, and it is extremely fucking scary of what is happening around the world and just our society in general. So let's take a look at this.
Screwed as a society.
We're fucked.
It's kind of sad. I mean, a lot of that's really accurate.
When the little guy is like trying to warn everybody, like, look what this is happening, and nobody just gives a fuck. They're just in their devices and their own lives, and it is a little bit exaggerated, because I don't think that's, of course, the case at the moment.
Right.
But I do see that is the potential we're heading towards when we stop valuing in-person time. Like people are so scared to get outside and interact with humans and just be human. Like, give your friend a hug,
I know.
give your friend a handshake, and
The
go out
stupid
to a
like elbow
bar.
thing
Yeah.
that they tell everyone to do. It's like the social distancing like high five
Yeah.
thing with like your elbow. Like, so fucking stupid.
But that's just the reality of our world today, because that is the implications of having a government run things like this. They want us separated. They want us scared of each other. They want us afraid, because when you're afraid, you're going to make bad decisions.
Divide and conquer.
That's really what it is. And what's the scariest part about this whole thing is that majority of it is true. It is happening today. Like, you go on the subway, you go on the bus, everybody's in their phones. Everybody's in their phones.
And I think a lot of it is like, there's nothing we're gonna be able to do to change it. I mean, everything is heading in the direction of, I mean, it has been for a long time, heading in the direction of technology and digital this and whatever. And a lot of it is beyond our control, but I think we need to try and do as much as we can to just, like you said, valuing just living our lives normally. I mean, social interaction, as much as we can control, right? We can't control that most of our life is becoming digital and whatever, but we can control that when we see friends in public, we can give them a hug and have a conversation with them without a mask on and see their face. Like, that's something that it doesn't seem like a big deal, but in a world where everything is so digital and it's just becoming more and more as the years go by, things like that are important. And we don't, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people are just forgetting that.
Yeah, well, this is why we have the stress levels, the depressions, and the anxieties.
Suicide rates that are just skyrocketing.
They're skyrocketing. And one of our core human needs, again, referring back from my psychology studies, one of the core human needs is human touch. It's the feeling of giving love and being loved. And that's not what's happening in the world right now, because we are worried about how you look online and how, what's your Instagram post and just those, like, what's the next TikTok and what's this and that. You're not really bothered by when was the last time I saw my family, or when was the last time you interacted with a friend. You're not bothered by that.
And I think depriving yourself of that social interaction and of those basic needs, you're deteriorating your health as well. And that's another thing. Like, if this is really about health, right, why is that being ignored? The fact that social interaction, how beneficial that is for mental health and how beneficial good mental health is for physical health. Like, that's being completely ignored, I feel like, for the most part. And like, for example, think about a lot of people argue we need to protect the old people, the seniors and everything. But in places like retirement homes and hospitals, or wherever the majority of these older people are, a lot of them in the past 2 years have been completely isolated. Like, they're not allowed to see their family members, or if they do, they have to be like with a mask or through a screen, or I don't even know. But that isolation, especially for someone who's older, who maybe, like, I feel like the older you get, the more important, being around your family is, and because you don't really have much else, right? You have your being around your family, and if you deprive people of that, where they're going to just be happy and healthy, like, you know what I mean? And then of course they get sick, or they get some kind of virus or whatever, and their body's too weak to handle it because their mind is weak and their heart is weak, because they've been deprived of one of the things that makes them stronger.
A core human need. Yeah.
I've had personal situations of this, but if someone who's older loses someone they love, right, like a wife or a husband or whatever, or a child or anything, you can watch how they just they get older faster, they deteriorate. They become more weak and unhealthy over time. It's because having that personal social connection was so important to them. And when you lose that, it affects you physically. And I've witnessed that and I've seen it. And this is similar. When you are taking that away from people, it's going to affect them physically. And then, of course, when you finally let them all out and they get some sort of virus or something like that, their body's just too weak to handle it. It's all like, if it was about health, that factor would have been taken into consideration. It's important.
It should have been at the minimum a discussion. At the minimum, it should have been a discussion. And the hypocrisy in all of this is that they create all of these Bell Let's Talk days and we have these helplines.
Yes, like in my emails from school, it's like 1 minute I get an email saying, "Oh, you're going to get kicked out of your class because you're diseased," and then the next email I get is, "Here are some mental health resources."
They know they're getting ready. It's like, fuck. Yep, that's the world we live in, and it's
all connected.
It is all connected. All of this is connected in the same way. Why? Because people don't take responsibility for their own lives, and they're handing that responsibility and that power to the government, to somebody who doesn't give a fuck about your health. They don't give a fuck about you.
No.
They only care about winning the next election so they stay in power, and they only care about gaining power and gaining money. That is their main purpose. That is why they are in the position. And quite frankly, we have not participated in politics. We don't know enough about politics, especially our generation of the students. We do not think about those things.
I think, like, I've actually heard of people that have said, "Oh yeah, I voted for Justin Trudeau because he's hot,"
Oh, I hear that,
right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, this is what you get.
This is what you voted for this.
Exactly. And it's like, how can it seems like funny or whatever, like it's not a big deal, but it's kind of ignorant.
Yeah. It's an important decision when you vote.
Like a lot of people just never vote and they never participate in politics. "Oh, I hate politics," or "Oh, I don't know about politics." And I think that's kind of an ignorant mindset, because when you don't participate in politics and things like this happen, right? I mean, if I don't know. I think that's
the reason we're in this mess.
Yeah.
The only reason we're in this mess is because we have voted for it. We have literally voted for it.
Like, we have a hot prime minister, but he's also a tyrant. So I mean, like,
it doesn't balance out, honestly. I don't know. I don't know if it was worth it. So here we are as a society. This is the point we're at, and this is what's happening in other countries around the world. Canada is not far behind from this.
No.
And we have not talked about China, we have not talked about Austria, but in those countries, similar things are happening, and it is getting very tyrannical. And if you don't want this shit happening, you have to do something about it. And that is responsibility for you to do something individually about it, because this is not going to be defeated by, some other leader, some other politician, or another force that just comes in all of a sudden and Superman comes out and defeats it all. None of this is going to happen unless you make the decisions for yourself, start taking responsibility for your own life, start taking responsibility for your health, and make good decisions and make good decisions for yourself without conforming to the greater good, so to speak.
Yeah. We need to start speaking up and saying no. Like, enough is enough. Even if you've kind of followed along with the narrative for the last couple of years, but you're starting to notice something doesn't seem right, go with that gut feeling. And if something doesn't seem right and things are not making sense to you, like, say no, enough is enough. Like, if it's, your job is now, or your school is now requiring a booster, right? And you already got your other shots or whatever. And it's like, oh, well, I kind of didn't really want to get my first 2 shots, but I got it. And it's like, okay, now I might need a third one. We need to start saying no, like, because otherwise nothing's going to change. And we need enough people to say no, because at the end of the day, the government can try to do whatever they want, and they're always going to try and do whatever they want. They're going to try to implement these policies or whatever. But if we don't listen to them, if we don't follow them, and if we think they're not right and we do something about them, then at the end of the day, we have the say,
Yeah.
But we just need enough people to realize that.
That's right. We need enough people to realize that we've been tricked. This is not about your health. They're not taking care of you. And we are being exploited, and we are losing our rights, our basic fundamental freedoms to choose. And so if you don't want that happening, and you resonate with our message, and you believe in what we're doing, I suggest you visit our website, csont.ca, and you can send us a message, and we'll get in touch with you as soon as we can. And we are going to conclude this right here. And next time, I wanted to talk about some of the strategies that we can use to combat this, and some of the strategies individuals can do in order to resist and drop these mandates.